The great hall of the alien Baron was filled with laughter and cruel joy. The Baron was a tall creature with gray skin and eyes like burning fire. He loved to show his power by humiliating others. That night, many alien nobles had gathered to watch him mock a human soldier. The soldier was strong, calm, and silent, wearing a simple uniform. He had been captured in a past war, but instead of breaking, he had survived with pride. The aliens hated that, and the Baron hated him most of all. The Baron rose from his golden throne, his voice shaking the room. "I have a gift for you, human," he said with a cruel smile. Everyone leaned forward, eager to see the humiliation. Guards entered, carrying a chair with a fragile figure sitting on it. It was the Baron's own daughter, thin and weak, her legs lifeless. Her head was bowed, her long silver hair hiding her face. The crowd gasped and then burst into laughter. They knew the girl. She was the Baron's shame, born paralyzed, unable to walk. To the aliens, weakness was worse than death. To give her away was to throw her like garbage. The Baron waved his hand, his voice booming. "Here, take her, human. She is useless to me. Perhaps you can use her as a servant or a toy." The nobles roared with laughter, some banging their cups on the table. The hall echoed with cruel voices, but the human soldier did not laugh. He looked at the girl, really looked. Her shoulders trembled, but her face did not rise. Her hands gripped the chair tightly, as if bracing for more humiliation. He could see it in her eyes. When she finally glanced up, there was pain, deep pain, but also a small spark of life, something the others were blind to. The human's heart tightened. This was no joke to him, this was cruelty beyond measure. He stepped forward, his boots heavy on the alien floor. The laughter around him grew louder, expecting him to spit on the girl or push her away. Instead, he bent down, lowering himself to her level. The girl's eyes widened slightly, surprised. In a gentle voice, he said, "You are not useless." The words cut through the noise, making a few nobles pause. He placed his strong hands under her frail body and lifted her carefully. The hall fell silent for a moment, shocked by the act. The Baron blinked, then laughed even louder. "Look at him. He takes her. The human accepts my trash. What a fool." The aliens roared again, their cruel joy filling the room, but the human ignored them. He held the girl as if she was something precious. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever carried her like this before. No one had ever treated her with such care. As he walked out of the hall, the Baron shouted after him, "Enjoy your gift, human. She will only drag you down just like she dragged down my honor." The laughter followed him down the cold corridors, but he did not care. The girl trembled in his arms, her voice a whisper. Why did you take me?" He looked at her and gave a small smile. "Because you deserve more than this," he said. She stared at him, confused. Her life had been nothing but mockery, silence, and shadows. For the first time, someone had spoken words that did not wound her. Outside the palace, the night was cold and quiet. The human carried her under the stars, his steps steady. The girl rested her head against his shoulder. Still, shaking, her thoughts raced. Could it be true? Could she really matter to someone? Or was this another cruel game she did not yet understand? The human looked up at the alien sky. He knew the path ahead would be dangerous. The Baron would not forget this insult, but he also knew something else. This fragile girl, mocked as a joke, might hold more than anyone realized. There was strength in her eyes, hidden deep, and he was determined to bring it out. For the first time in her life, she was not just a burden. For the first time, she was someone worth protecting. And so, the cruel gift was carried away. But what the Baron saw as useless, the human saw as the beginning of something greater. The Hall of Laughter was far behind, but its echoes remained. The galaxy had just witnessed a joke, yet the real story was only beginning. The human carried the girl through the alien city, his arm steady though his heart was heavy. Every street was lined with glowing towers, every corner filled with strange eyes watching them. Aliens whispered and pointed, mocking him as he passed. Some laughed, some spat, and others shook their heads. To them, he was a fool, carrying trash, carrying weakness, carrying shame. But the human walked on, ignoring them all. The girl hid her face in his shoulder, ashamed, afraid, and confused. No one had ever held her like this before, and no one had ever dared to defy her father in public. At last, he reached the small house given to him as a prisoner soldier. It was simple, almost empty, but clean. He placed her gently on a chair near the fire, the only warmth in the cold room. For a long time, she said nothing, staring at the flames as if they would swallow her whole. Finally, her voice broke the silence. Soft and trembling, "You should not have taken me," she whispered. "I am useless. I cannot walk. I cannot fight. I cannot serve." Her words were heavy, shaped by years of mockery. The human knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. "You are not useless," he said again, firm but kind. She shook her head, tears forming. "You do not understand. In this empire, the weak have no place. I am nothing, less than nothing." But the human only smiled. "In my world, every life has meaning. Every person has worth, even if they cannot fight or walk." Her tears fell, and she quickly turned her face away, unused to such words. For days the girl remained quiet, barely speaking. She expected him to grow tired, to throw her aside, to see her as the burden she believed herself to be. But he did not. He cooked food, shared stories of Earth, and asked her questions. He spoke of oceans wider than cities, forests older than empires, and skies filled with stars. At first she thought he was lying, for no one had ever painted such pictures with words, but his voice carried a truth she could not deny. Each night, she listened a little more. Each day she began to answer, if only with a word or two. One evening, as rain tapped against the roof, she asked him, "Why are you kind to me? Do you not see I cannot change, I cannot be strong?" The human sat across from her, his eyes calm. "Strength is not only in muscles or weapons," he said. "Strength is in the mind, in the heart, in the will to keep living when the world wants you gone." She blinked, her breath caught, for no one had ever said such things to her. In her father's palace, strength was measured only by victory in battle, by blood spilled, by enemies crushed. Here, in this quiet room, strength meant something new, something she might still have. The days turned into weeks, and small changes began to show. The girl's voice grew stronger, her laughter returned in tiny sparks. Once, while he read aloud from a book, she laughed so suddenly she covered her mouth, afraid. But the human only smiled, his heart warm at the sound. She had not laughed in years, and now, for the first time, she felt a little light inside. It frightened her, but it also gave her hope. Still, doubts haunted her. At night she dreamed of her father's mocking face, the laughter of nobles, the shame of being carried like a broken doll. She would wake up sweating, her chest tight, whispering, "I am nothing." Each time the human would be there, patient, steady, reminding her that she was not nothing. He never raised his voice, never mocked, never gave up. Slowly she began to wonder, could he be right? Meanwhile, whispers spread through the alien city. The Baron's gift had not been abandoned. The human had kept her, cared for her, even smiled with her. Nobles gossiped, guards chuckled, but some grew uneasy. What did it mean if the human saw value in the Baron's greatest shame? Could there be more hidden within the girl than anyone had thought? The Baron himself heard these rumors and frowned. At first he laughed them away, certain that the human was a fool, but a small shadow of doubt entered his mind. If the girl changed, if she grew stronger, would it not make his cruel joke turn against him? Back in the small house, the girl sat by the fire, staring at her weak legs, her hands clenched, her voice soft. What if I never change? What if I stay this way forever? The human placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. Then, you will still matter because you are you, he said. Her heart trembled. Unused to such words, for the first time she allowed herself to believe, even if only a little, that her life was not over, that maybe, just maybe, she had a choice. And in that moment, as rain fell and the fire glowed, a small seed of hope was planted in her heart, a seed that could grow into something greater than either of them yet knew. The human had chosen her, not as a burden, not as a joke, but as someone worth saving, and that choice would change both their fates. The galaxy had laughed, the Baron had mocked, but the story was no longer a joke. It was becoming something else, something dangerous, something powerful, the choice of one. Human had lit a spark, and soon the whole empire would feel its fire. The days passed slowly in the small house, but inside its walls, change began to grow like a hidden flame. The girl, once silent and broken, now spoke a little more each day. She still doubted herself, still feared her father's shadow. Yet the human's steady presence gave her a strange courage. Every morning he would greet her as if she were someone important, not a burden, not a joke, but a person worth noticing. And every evening, he would tell her stories of his world, painting pictures with simple words, pictures brighter than the palace hall she had left behind. He told her about rivers so wide that ships could vanish into the horizon, about mountains so tall that clouds wrapped around them like blankets, and about children running freely in fields of grass, laughing with joy, not fear. She listened, eyes wide as if these things were treasures beyond imagination. Her world had been walls, chains, and cold stares, but his words broke those walls. For the first time she felt as if there was a world larger than her shame, larger than her weakness. One afternoon, the human brought a simple slate and chalk. He placed it in front of her and said, "Write your name." Her hand trembled, for she had never been asked to write it before. Her father never cared. The nobles never bothered. She was a shadow, not a person. But the human waited patiently, his eyes gentle. Slowly, carefully, she drew the letters, uneven and shaking but real. When she finished, she looked at him nervously, expecting laughter. Instead, he smiled, pride shining in his face. "Well done," he said. "Your name is your beginning, not your end." Her chest warmed, a spark she could not explain. She wanted to write more, to learn more, to see herself as more than her weakness. In the evenings, he began to teach her simple movements. He built small supports with scraps of wood, placing them around her chair. "Hold on here," he said. "Try to move your arms, even a little." At first, her hands slipped, her strength failing. Tears burned in her eyes, shame whispering that she was useless again. But he did not let her stop. "Even the smallest step is still a step," he told her. So she tried again, again, and again. Her arms shook. Her muscles ached, but slowly, she managed to lift herself just a little. It was not much, but to her, it felt like touching the stars. When she fell back into the chair, she laughed breathlessly, her face glowing with pride. The sound filled the room like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The human watched her, silent for a moment, then smiled. "You see, there is strength inside you," he said. She shook her head, still doubting, but her smile betrayed her heart. Deep inside, something had shifted. She no longer believed she was nothing. Not completely. A seed of hope had been planted. And it was, growing stronger each day, but outside their little home, whispers grew louder. The aliens in the city noticed the change. They saw her being carried into the sunlit courtyard, her eyes brighter than before, her laughter returning. To them it was strange, wrong even, for one so weak to smile. Some sneered, calling her the human's pet. Others whispered that maybe the human was a sorcerer twisting her mind, and in the palace the Baron's spies carried the news to their master. The Baron listened, his jaw tight, his pride stung. His broken daughter, his shame, was laughing, smiling, learning. It made no sense, and worse, it made him feel mocked. The joke he had played on the human was now turning back on him. But he told himself it was nothing, that soon it would collapse, that the girl would fail. Yet deep in his heart, fear began to stir. Back in the small house, the girl sat by the fire, clutching the slate close to her chest. "Why are you teaching me all this?" she asked one night, her voice quiet but curious. The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because knowledge gives freedom," he said. "And because you deserve to know who you are, not who others told you to be." Her lips trembled, her eyes stung with tears. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to see herself as more, but years of cruelty weighed heavy on her soul. Still, she whispered, "Thank you." The words small, but real. It was the first time she had thanked anyone in her life. And so, day by day, lesson by lesson, laugh by laugh, she grew. She was still weak, still fragile, still afraid of the world outside, but inside, sparks of hope lit fires she never knew she carried. The humans saw it too, the way her eyes shone brighter, the way her voice grew stronger, and he knew deep within that this was only the beginning. The Baron had given him a cruel gift, a joke meant to wound, but in that joke, he had found a hidden light, a light that could grow into something powerful, something unstoppable. The galaxy still laughed, still mocked, but it would not laugh forever, for every spark can grow into a flame, and this girl, once called useless, was beginning to burn. The alien Baron sat alone in his throne room, the firelight flickering against his cold eyes. Servants bowed low, afraid to speak, for they knew their master's temper was sharp as a blade. Rumors had reached him, whispers carried by spies and nobles, whispers he hated to hear. His paralyzed daughter, the one he had given away as a joke, was changing. She was laughing, learning, even daring to walk with the humans' help. At first, the Baron laughed at such tales, brushing them aside as foolish lies. But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder, sharper, spreading through the city like fire through dry grass. Each whisper was a thorn in his pride, each rumor a shadow in his heart. The Baron rose, pacing across the stone floor, his claws scraping against the tiles. He had given her away to humiliate the human, to show that weakness would drag him down, but instead, it seemed the human had turned the insult into something else. The very idea that his greatest shame could become something valuable filled him with rage. He slammed his fist against the throne, the sound echoing like thunder. "She is nothing," he growled. "She will always be nothing." Yet even as he spoke the words, a doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. What if she truly was changing? What if the human saw something he had been blind to all along? Meanwhile, in the small house, the girl was growing stronger each day. Her arms no longer shook as much. Her voice carried more confidence. She could stand for a moment with the human's support, and though her legs still failed, she no longer feared trying. But deep inside, shadows lingered. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face, his burning eyes, his mocking smile. She heard the laughter of nobles, the cruel voices that told her she was worthless. Sometimes when the human spoke of her potential, her heart believed him. But then the shadows would rise again, whispering, "You are nothing. You will always be nothing." One evening, as the fire crackled low, she turned to the human, her eyes full of fear. "What if my father comes for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. The human looked at her, calm and steady. "Then he will see you are no longer his shadow," he said. She shook her head, tears spilling. "He will crush me. He will crush you. He does not forgive. He does not forget." Her voice cracked, heavy with years of fear. The human placed his hand gently over hers. "Let him try," he said softly. "I will not abandon you." Her heart ached, torn between belief and doubt, between hope and fear. The days passed, and with them the tension grew. The people of the city watched in silence, curious, whispering of the human and the Baron's daughter. Some mocked, some pitied, but others began to wonder. Could there truly be more to her than they had been told? The human's defiance planted seeds of unease among them. If weakness could become strength, what else had they been blind to? Back in the palace, the Baron summoned his advisors. They bowed low, their faces pale, for they knew their master's pride was wounded. "She cannot change," the Baron declared, his voice sharp. "Tell me these rumors are false." The advisors exchanged nervous glances. One, braver than the rest, spoke carefully. "My lord, the human, he treats her with respect, and she grows stronger under his care. It may be—" The Baron roared, cutting him off, his hand striking the table so hard it cracked. "Lies, all lies. She will never be strong." But when the hall was empty again, he sat in silence, the shadows of doubt heavier than ever. That night, the girl dreamed of chains, of cold halls, of her father's eyes. She woke, crying, her body trembling, her heart racing. The human was there, steady as always, holding her hand until the fear faded. "You are safe here," he told her. She wanted to believe him, but the shadows clung to her soul. Her father's voice was always there, whispering that she was nothing. Even as hope grew, doubt rose to meet it, a war inside her heart. But the human never stopped. Each day he reminded her of her worth. Each night he showed her that she was not alone. He built new tools, small supports to help her stand longer. He gave her books, words that opened her mind like doors to hidden worlds. And though the shadows whispered, the sparks of hope refused to die. She began to see herself not as her father's broken child, but as someone who could choose her own path. Her voice grew steadier, her laughter stronger, her will sharper. But in the distance she felt it, the storm of her father's rage building. It was only a matter of time before the Baron himself would come, and when he did, the fragile balance between hope and doubt would be tested like never before. For now, the shadow still clung to her. But even in the darkest night, sparks of hope continued to burn, and soon, those sparks would face the fire of the Baron's wrath. Fire that could either destroy her or forge her into something new. The human stood in the corner of the small house, staring at the pile of broken alien scrap he had collected. Strange gears, wires, and glowing crystals lay scattered across the table, remnants of machines the aliens had thrown away. To the human, however, these pieces were not junk. They were tools. They were hope. He had a plan, one that no alien noble would ever think of. If her legs could not move on their own, then he would build something to help her stand. The girl watched from her chair, confusion in her eyes. "What are you doing?" she asked softly, her voice still carrying doubt. The human smiled without looking up, his hands busy fitting wires together. "Building your tomorrow," he said simply. She frowned, not understanding, but something in his tone made her heart beat faster. She had never been included in tomorrow before. Her life had always been a shadow of yesterday, days turned into nights, and nights into days. As the human worked, he hammered, shaped, and joined pieces of alien technology with his own designs. The sound of tools filled the small house, mixing with the crackle of the fire. Sometimes sparks flew, sometimes metal broke, but he never stopped. And each time he looked at her, his eyes burned with determination. It was not the gaze of pity, but of belief. Belief that she could rise. One evening, he brought the strange device to her. It was rough, made of metal rods, gears, and glowing blue veins of alien crystal. "Try this," he said, his voice calm but expectant. She hesitated, fear creeping into her heart. "What if I fall?" she whispered. The human knelt beside her, steady as always. "Then I will catch you," he promised, with trembling hands. She held the supports, the machine strapping gently to her weak legs. The weight felt heavy, the fear heavier still, her father's. Voice echoed in her mind, mocking. "Cruel? You are nothing," it whispered. But then she felt the human's steady hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Stand," he said softly. "Just try." She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and pushed. With all her strength, her legs trembled, her arms shook, and slowly, painfully she rose. Her knees wavered, her heart pounded, but she was standing. For the first time in her life, she was standing. Tears blurred her vision. Her breath caught. I'm up," she whispered in disbelief. The human's smile was warm, proud, and unshaken. "Yes," he said. "You are." She lasted only a few seconds before collapsing back into the chair, but instead of despair, she laughed, breathless, her whole body trembling with joy. It was a laugh the walls had never heard before. A laugh born not of mockery, but of triumph. From that day, training became part of her life. Each morning, the human adjusted the device, making it stronger, lighter, better. Each afternoon, she practiced standing, then taking small steps, her legs weak but determined. At first, she fell often, her body hitting the ground hard. Every time she wanted to give up, but the human was always there, lifting her, steadying her, reminding her of her strength. Every fall is a lesson, he told her. Every step is victory. And slowly, painfully, she began to take more steps. 1 step, then 2, then 3, until the day she crossed the room, her face glowed with triumph, her chest heaving with effort. The human clapped once, firm and proud. "You are walking," he said. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe it was true, but progress did not erase the shadows in her mind. Each night, she still dreamed of her father's cruel laughter. Each day, she still feared the storm of his wrath. She worried that all her training, all her hope would vanish when he came. "Why do you fight so hard for me?" she asked one night, staring at the fire. The human sat beside her, his voice quiet but sure. "Because I see what you can become," he said, "and because no one deserves to live as a shadow." Her eyes stung with tears, but she nodded, holding. His words close outside. Whispers of her training began to spread. Some aliens laughed, mocking her clumsy steps. Others grew uneasy, for weakness was never meant to rise. And in the palace, the Baron's spies reported her progress. "She stands, she walks, she learns," they said. The Baron's rage burned hotter with each report. How could his broken daughter rise when he had cast her down? How could his cruel gift turn into a weapon against his pride? Still the girl trained, her body bruised, her spirit tested. With every fall she grew stronger. With every step, she grew bolder. The human pushed her, not with cruelty, but with faith, and she began to push herself not just for him but for her own heart. Her doubt was still there, her fear still real, but her hope was stronger now. She no longer saw herself only as a burden. She saw herself as someone who could fight tomorrow. And tomorrow was no longer a curse, but a promise. The Baron had given her away as a cruel joke, but the joke was turning into something he could not control. For the girl he had called useless was learning to stand, and one day soon, she would learn to rise higher than he had ever feared. The alien Baron sat in his throne, his claws tapping against the armrest, the sound sharp and angry. The hall was silent, nobles watching him carefully, afraid to breathe too loudly. For weeks, whispers had spread across the city, whispers he could not silence. His broken daughter, the one he had mocked, the one he had given away, was no longer weak. They said she was standing, walking, even smiling. They said the human had changed her, had given her strength she never had before, and worst of all, they said the people were beginning to notice. Some mocked her still, but others were curious. Others whispered that maybe weakness could become strength. To the Baron, such words were poison. He slammed his fist on the throne, the sound shaking the chamber. "She was mine to cast away," he roared, his voice echoing through the hall. "She is nothing. She will always be nothing. How dare he twist my joke into defiance?" His advisors bowed low, trembling, none daring to speak. One of them finally whispered, "My lord, perhaps it is nothing. Perhaps the rumors are exaggerated." The Baron's eyes burned red, silencing him instantly. "I will see the truth with my own eyes," the Baron growled. "I will show this human and my shame of a daughter what happens when they dare mock me." That night, guards marched through the city, their armor clashing like thunder. The people watched from shadows as the Baron's procession moved toward the edge of the city, toward the small house where the human and the girl lived. Inside, the girl had just finished another painful training session, her legs trembling from effort. She collapsed into her chair, sweat on her brow, but her eyes glowed with pride. "I did it," she whispered. "I took 10 steps today." The human nodded, his voice calm but warm. "You are growing stronger each day," he said. "Soon you will walk without fear." But before she could answer, the door shook with a thunderous bang. The human moved quickly, standing in front of her. The door burst open and the Baron himself stepped inside, flanked by guards. His towering form filled the room, his eyes blazing with fury. The girl froze, her heart pounding, her body trembling. It was her father, the man who had cast her away, the man who had mocked her every breath. The Baron's gaze fell on her, and for a moment, there was silence. Then he laughed, a sound like a blade scraping against stone. So, the rumors were true, he sneered. My broken daughter stands like a puppet on wires. The girl lowered her eyes, shame burning in her chest, but the human stepped forward, his voice steady. She is no puppet, he said. She is stronger than you ever allowed her to be. The Baron's laughter turned to a snarl. You dare speak to me? You, a prisoner, a weak human, dare to challenge me? His claws curled, his rage filling the room like fire. You think teaching her tricks makes her strong? She will always be a failure, and you will always be nothing. The girl flinched at his words, the old pain returning. But the human did not move. His eyes locked on the Baron's. She is not a failure, he said firmly. She is more than you ever saw. The Baron's guard shifted, ready to strike, but the Baron lifted a hand to stop them. His pride demanded he crush this defiance himself. The Baron stepped closer, towering over the human. You think you can change her fate? You think you can erase my shame? His voice thundered, shaking the walls. I gave her away because she is worthless, and I will prove it to you. He turned to his daughter, his gaze sharp as knives. Stand, he commanded, his voice like iron. Her body shook, fear clawing at her heart. For years his voice had chained her, crushed her, broken her. But now, with the human's hand steady on her shoulder, she closed her eyes and breathed slowly. Painfully, she pushed herself up. Her legs trembled, her body weak, but she stood. The room fell silent, the guards staring in shock. The Baron's eyes widened, for a moment losing their fire. His daughter was standing, not with hate, not with fear, but with her own will. She met his gaze, her voice trembling but clear. I am not nothing, she whispered. The Baron's jaw tightened, his claws digging into his throne of pride. For the first time in his life, her words struck him like a blade. The human's eyes burned with quiet triumph. But the Baron's rage returned, hotter than ever. He roared, his voice shaking the walls. You dare defy me? You dare shame me before my own. Guards? The guards shifted nervously, unsure, for they had never seen the Baron lose control like this. The girl stood, weak but unbroken, her father's rage crashing against her newfound strength. The human stepped closer to her side, steady as stone. The Baron's laughter was gone, replaced by fury. By fear he would never admit he had given her away as a joke. But now the joke was on him, and deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. For if his broken daughter could rise, what else could she become, and worse, what else could this human awaken in her? The air in the small house was heavy, filled with the Baron's rage and the girl's trembling courage. For the first time in her life, she had stood before her father. And for the first time, she had spoken words he could not crush. I am not nothing, she had said, and those words echoed like thunder in the silence. The Baron's eyes burned with fury, but deep inside, something sharp twisted in his chest. He could not admit it, but he had seen strength in her, strength he had never expected. The human stood beside her, calm and steady, his presence a shield. The Baron sneered, his voice a growl. You think standing a few steps makes you strong? You are still weak. You are still broken. You will never rise above me. But the girl raised her head, meeting his gaze without looking away. Her legs trembled, her hands shook, yet her eyes shone with something her father had never seen before. Belief. Not belief in him, not belief in fear, but belief in herself. The guards shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between father and daughter. Some of them looked confused, others troubled, for they had never seen the Baron's daughter speak with such defiance. Whispers ran through the hall like cracks spreading across stone. Could it be true? Could the useless one actually stand? The Baron felt their stares like knives against his pride. He roared, Silence, she is nothing, she will always be nothing. But the people had already seen, and they would not forget. The human spoke then, his voice calm but sharp as steel. You tried to break her, but you only revealed her strength. What you call weakness will become the power that shames you. The Baron's claws curled, his rage burning hotter. You dare to speak of shame to me? He roared. I am the Baron, I am power, I am empire. But his words sounded less like truth and more like desperation. For the more he shouted, the more the girl's quiet strength grew. She stepped forward, her body trembling with effort, supported by the device the human had built. Each step was a victory, each breath a declaration. Her father's mocking voice filled her mind, but she pushed it away. Instead, she remembered the human's words, the laughter they had shared, the lessons he had given her. She remembered that every step was not just movement, it was proof that she was alive, that she was more than a shadow. When she reached the center of the room, she turned to the guards, to the servants, to all who watched. Her voice was soft but clear. "I am not my father's shame," she said. "I am not broken. I am not worthless. I am me, and I will not be silent anymore." The hall fell silent, no one dared to breathe. The Baron's jaw clenched, his pride bleeding like a wound. "Enough!" he roared. "You dare defy me in front of my own people? You dare humiliate me?" His rage was wild, but his daughter did not flinch this time. She had been humiliated her entire life, but no more. She lifted her chin, her silver hair falling back, her eyes glowing with strength. "This is not your empire," she whispered. "Not anymore, it is mine." The guards gasped, some stepping back in shock. The Baron's roar shook the walls, but it could not silence the truth that had been spoken. The people would remember this moment, the day the broken daughter stood tall. The human placed his hand on her shoulder, his eyes proud. He had seen this potential from the beginning, the spark hidden deep within her. And now, that spark had become a flame that could not be extinguished. The Baron lunged forward, his rage blinding him. But the guards did not move to follow, their loyalty shaken, their faith cracked. The human stood firm, ready to fight, his body tense, but the girl raised her hand, stopping him. "No," she said, her voice steady. "This is my fight." Her father froze, his claws inches from her, his breath heavy. For the first time he hesitated, for the first time he saw not weakness, but strength staring back at him. The silence stretched, heavy and endless. Then the Baron stepped back, his face twisted with rage and fear. "You will regret this," he hissed. "You will both regret this." He turned and stormed from the hall, his guards uncertain, their eyes filled with doubt. The girl stood tall, her body trembling but her spirit unbroken. The human looked at her, his voice soft. "You faced him," he said. "You chose your own path." She nodded, her eyes shining with tears. "For the first time, I am not afraid," she whispered. Outside, the city stirred with whispers and rumors. The story of the Baron's broken daughter who stood against him spread like fire. To some it was madness, to others it was hope. And across the stars, those who heard the tale began to wonder, if one human could take a broken girl and awaken her strength, what else could humans do? What else lay hidden in their strange hearts, their stubborn will, their endless defiance? The galaxy had laughed at the Baron's cruel gift, but no one was laughing now, for the girl once mocked as useless had shown her true potential, and beside her stood the human who had seen it all along. Together they had turned a joke into destiny, and the future of the Empire, perhaps even the future of the galaxy, would never be the same again.